Good morning, everybody. Wisconsin's 7th Congressional District Representative Tom Tiffany is joining us today, Thursday. Nope, Friday. This is the wrong one. March 17th. What's the date today? April 15th. It's Good Friday today. For DrydenWire.com, I'm Ben. What's that?
It's also tax day.
Oh, that's right. Oh, I should ask you about that. Anyway, for DrydenWire.com, I'm Ben Dryden, and you're watching Breakfast with Tiffany, a monthly live video podcast with our representative where we discuss all things going on in D.C. and in the 7th Congressional District. We do these once a month, and you can find a recording of all of our previous chats on our website, our Facebook page, or simply go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/DrydenWire. Also, if you have a question for our congressman, or if you have a topic you would like to suggest we discuss, just let us know in the comments. Tom, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Good Friday to everyone out there, and hope you have a happy Easter weekend. For those of you that celebrate Christ's death and resurrection, it's a glorious weekend.
It is. You know what? You're just the guy I want to talk to about that, because you're in D.C., you're a congressman. You need to introduce a new bill or a new law or something, however that works. Because it's, all right, so it's Good Friday today, right? Crucifixion. And then on Easter, it's celebrating the resurrection of our Lord and Savior, our Christ Jesus. But that's after 3 days he rose. Well, if it's Friday, that means Easter should be on Monday, or Good Friday really should be Good Thursday. So pass a law or do something. If you could take care of that, I'd appreciate it.
Okay.
Thanks, buddy. Get back to us next month. Let us know how it's going. So it's been a few weeks since you've been on. So what's new with you?
Boy, it's been busy. Let's see. This week we're home the week before Easter and after Easter, so we get a little Easter break here in D.C. the 2 weeks prior to that, and some legislation moving through, especially stuff in regards to the Ukraine and NATO, those type of things. So a few things like that. Also, bills like changing daylight savings time, as well as regulating hairstyles. So really important work that Speaker Pelosi's had us doing. Actually, the Ukrainian stuff is very important, and we've been certainly a lot of discussion about that, and we have passed some bills in regards to the Russia-Ukraine war.
So I have to follow up on one of those. What's the hairstyle? What's that about? I've not even heard of it. I'm sure it's not a joke, but it just sounds awfully funny.
Yeah, so you can't discriminate against people with certain hairstyles. So what, in particular, there are some African Americans that say that they've been discriminated against because of how they wear their hair. And I hope that doesn't happen, because you cannot discriminate. But this was a redundant messaging bill, which I think plays to people's basest instincts.
Sure.
We have sufficient laws on the books that prevent discrimination in our country, that outlaw discrimination. You can't do it. So to do this was just duplicative, and it was more of a messaging bill by Speaker Pelosi.
Sure. Duplicative. I like that word. Hey, so what Fitzy and I do, and I want to start this on this show, if that's okay with you, when we do our Positive Tuesday benefits shows, we go over right away press releases that he has sent out, or any articles that I have written regarding, usually it's law enforcement related, in Barron County. So I went to your website, which is tiffany.house.gov, and I just looked at your press releases since you were last on, and I just wrote down the headlines, and you can take 30 seconds or 5 minutes to get into these, but if you just want to explain what this was and why it's important, the first one, so I'm going backwards order, so the one that was just out a couple days ago, the headline is Congressman Tiffany's 2022 Congressional Art Competition deadline is a week away. What is that? Well, started the show off with a bang. All right, hopefully he'll just sign back in. Maybe his internet went out again. Okay, hold on. I'll let him know. Just sign back in. So, hey, how's everybody doing this morning? While we're waiting for him, hopefully he gets back on here. Larry. Oh, good morning, Larry. See, we can put that up while we're waiting. That's great. I'm going to take a screen. Oh, I was just going to take a screenshot of that. Hopefully he signs back in here. Frozen. Yeah, I see that, Kirk. What's up with that? He must be at home. He's not in D.C. We got to get that broadband fixed, Kirk. Yeah. So Easter plans, everybody. So we're just going to talk about Easter or something until, or hey, if you have a question for me, I will by proxy answer any questions you have for Tom Tiffany, because there's no way that is going to go terribly wrong. So if you want to put those in. Try signing back in. Mr. Tiffany. Weather related. That could be. I don't know. Sorry, I'm typing a message. Live, they said. All right. This is going to be a short show. What we were going to talk about, and actually I have that information, the Tiffany. So what that was is it reminds high school students, what we're actually talking about, Tom Tiffany reminds high school students around Wisconsin's 7th District that his office is accepting applications for the 2022 Congressional Art Competition until April 20th. Hey, I was just by proxy answering all the questions for you.
Hang on.
Okay. I was just kidding. Nobody actually asked a question.
My internet connection dropped.
Why?
Here.
Oop. I think you just signed in. This is another time. You've signed in twice now. That's bizarre. That's okay. We got you back on right now. That's the important thing.
Okay.
This is exactly what it's like every time my dad calls me and asks me to come and fix something. It's usually something simple, but the look that he was just doing, that's fantastic. Oop, well, you're up.
Here we are.
Okay, take two.
So I understand you're answering questions for me today.
Yeah, by proxy, yeah, no problem. Because I said there's no way that will go wrong. Okay, so we were on your Congressional Art Competition.
Yeah, so that concludes April 20th. Is that next Wednesday? I think it's next Wednesday. Yep.
Sure. Yeah,
April 20th.
Yeah.
People can make submissions. All you art teachers out there, be sure to let your students know they can send in a piece of work to have it judged, and then we will judge them, and we will choose the winner. The winner gets their piece displayed out at the United States Capitol. It's a real honor.
So you do that every year?
Yeah, we do it every year.
So then you replace
all
the last one.
All 435 offices do it.
Oh, nice. Oh,
yeah, it's pretty cool.
And it's for high school kids, right? Because I remember looking at that release, and so my daughter Riley is quite the artist, but she's in 8th grade. So I'm like, oh, she just missed the cut.
Next year,
exactly. Okay, so the next one that we have is Representative Tiffany. Again, these are all press releases that you have posted. Anyone can find more information at tiffany.house.gov. The next one was Representative Tiffany seeks to protect mink farms from Washington overreach. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so there's a bill that we passed out of the House called the Competes Act, and it's meant to, the compete part of it is in regards to China to make sure that it's a level playing field. They're not abusing the situation. Well, there was a bill that was added to the Competes Act by a representative from Connecticut to basically outlaw mink farming in America. And it's a real sneak attack, sticking a bill in late at night the Competes Act has nothing to do with mink farming. And so she snuck it in there, and Speaker Pelosi allowed it to be able to go in. And now in the conference committee that we have between the Senate and the House of Representatives, because each house has to reconcile their bills to make sure they're identical. I'm on that conference committee now, and I'm going to work to get that provision removed from the Competes Act, because it'll put mink farmers out of business. And I don't think people should be sanguine about this, that it's just to eliminate mink farming. There's a whole group of representatives out in Washington, D.C. While they're not a majority, there's a significant number. They want to end animal agriculture in America. Remember a year or two ago when Representative Ocasio-Cortez from New York City, she said, we have to end animal agriculture because otherwise we're going to have climate change that that's going to basically be the end of the earth. And she said, we need to do this in the next decade. She said, we need to eliminate dairy farming, beef farming, hog farming. And you have this group of people, while it's a small group of people, they're very vocal and they're trying to end animal agriculture. That's the reason that Representative DeLauro from Connecticut put it in there. And it's just nonsensical. For those of us that live in the 7th Congressional District, you just shake your heads and you wonder what people think in the big cities sometimes.
Okay, next up here is Representatives Tom Tiffany and Lauren, what's her last name? Boebert? Boebert. Lead effort to uphold gray wolf science. Because, of course, if you're on, somehow it's always a topic of gray wolf. So what is that one about?
What was it? A little over a month ago, another federal judge stepped up and said that he's going to relist the wolf in the United States. So in other words, there cannot be a wolf season. So they're taking away management away from the states. And we've talked about this many times. Mm-hmm. I've introduced a few bills in this regard. I joined Representative Boebert from Colorado in this effort, saying to the Natural Resources Committee, we got to get a bill going here to allow states to manage their wolf population. We all understand wolves have a place on the landscape, but the states should be managing this, not the federal government. Because when the federal government manages things like this, they just always do it wrong. And you're seeing it at this point. And we see it in so many ways, not just with wolves. When the federal government touches it, it becomes a problem. Leave it to the states. They'll find a better solution.
We could go to the next one, or I don't know if you can see the comments up there. Do you want to? There's a question there from Richard. Do you see that?
Yeah, Richard's got a really good question. With the Putin depression looming, do you feel the House and Senate will force the administration to quit ruling by caveat and go back to government by the people's representatives? This is a serious problem with the Congress at this point. It has largely turned its authority over to the executive branch. We all know, Ben, 3 branches of government: judicial, executive, and legislative. Mm-hmm. And the legislative, over the last decade or so, has really given up a lot of its authority. One example of that is in the budgeting process. There's not been a legitimate budget that's been passed like we used to, like the state of Wisconsin does, and that I used to participate in when I was in the state Senate. There's not a legitimate budget process that goes on. And it really is causing real harm that you don't have government by the people, by their representatives, which is exactly what Richard is talking about. I will kind of chuckle about the what he prefaced his question with the Putin depression looming. Trust me, that depression was coming long before Putin invaded the Ukraine. All you have to do is go back to President Obama, one of his chief economic advisors, Steve Ratner. He just came out this week and very publicly said, I warned the Biden administration not to pass the American Recovery Plan a little over a year ago that spent $2 trillion. You are going to you're going to have serious inflationary pressures as a result of that. And that's exactly what has happened. The other thing that has really driven those inflationary pressures, Ben, is the high price of energy, whether it's home heating, gasoline, diesel fuel, whatever the case may be, fertilizer now. Those high energy costs are also really causing inflation to spike.
The next one that we have here, again, we're just going over some press releases that you have on your website since the last time that you were on. And if anyone wants to read them, it's at tiffany.house.gov. The next one is Tiffany tapped to serve on China Legislation Conference Committee. That sounds important.
Yeah, I just alluded to that earlier. There's not very many conference committees that are put together. I appreciate ranking member on Judiciary, Representative Jordan, asked me if I would represent the Judiciary Committee, which I sit on the Judiciary Committee and the Natural Resources Committee. And he asked if I would represent the Judiciary Committee. I take that as a real honor to do that. And one of the things that I'm going to go in looking to do is remove the mink provision that seeks to end mink farming here in America. And amongst other things. First of all, we need to make sure that we're fiscally responsible, and that's not been happening. And that'll be something that will be part of my focus also.
Okay. There's two left here, and the next one is Tiffany joins House Natural Resources Committee colleagues in introducing 6 solutions to refuel America's energy independence.
Yeah, so those of us in the minority on the Natural Resources Committee, our ranking member is Representative Westerman from Arkansas. We put together, so we talk about what the problems are, right? Inflation is as a result of 2 things: the Federal Reserve monetizing all the debt that's out there, and of course, Congress creating so much debt over the last couple years. So you've got the inflationary problem, you got the border problem, you got the crime problem. I mean, you got all these records that we're setting in America that are very dubious. I think it's important to talk about solutions, and that's what we're doing with these 6 points. Among those 6 points is let's allow drilling to go on our federal lands. There's a backup of about 4,600 drilling permits that are not being addressed by the Biden administration. There are a number of permits in regards to pipelines that move energy here in America that are being held up by one of the regulatory agencies under the Biden administration. Let's sweep away those impediments. Let's restart the Keystone Pipeline. All those things we put into a document, and we said, hey, here's how we can reverse course on these high energy prices, and we can make America energy independent once again. And we just wanted to make sure that we put it on paper so the American people know that we're not just saying no out there, that we're providing solutions.
Sure. If anyone has a question for the congressman, please put that in the comments, or any of your own comments, put them in the comments. And the last one here was Tiffany joins lawmakers in proposing legislation to revoke China's preferential trade status.
Yeah, so China was given most favored trade nation status. I think it was 2001. People could double check that, but I think it was 2001, which means they did not have to come back to Congress to get that renewed year to year. I'm saying with that bill, China should have to get their most favored nation status reviewed every year. China has a long history of intellectual property theft. They do it right here in America. They steal it out of our universities and they take it back to China. They have a deplorable human rights record where they have ethnic Uyghurs in Western China who work in slave labor. By the way, producing some of those wind turbines and solar panels that come to America. And then, of course, they've suppressed Hong Kong, one of the freest jurisdictions in the world up until about 5 to 10 years ago. Now Hong Kong is no longer free. So they have a terrible record. They bully their neighbors like Taiwan. And there is no reason for us to give them most favored nation status to trade with America, the greatest consumer market in the world. Why should we allow them to do that when they have those failings that I just listed?
Sure. If you don't mind, I had a guest on yesterday. His name was Dale Knapp. He was the Forward Analytics Director, or Director of Forward Analytics. There was a report that came out, and I put it on our website yesterday. The title was Flush with Cash, Wisconsin's Growing Financial Reserves. And I know you're not in Madison anymore, obviously, but 7th Congressional District Representative, you clearly have an interest in Wisconsin and things that are happening here, obviously. And the one part I want to ask about this, because Dale Knapp was a great kind of walking us through, kind of dumbing it down for me, I mean other people. And the part that I want to ask you about, because the two of you remind me of each other, because you're like number nerds, which I say that affectionately, because that's awesome. But one of the things he was talking about, and I know that you did a lot of legislative stuff with the finance when you were a senator in the state here in Wisconsin, and it was about the rainy day fund. About 5%. It's like we're flush with cash. However, we should take this rainy day fund. I'm sorry, not take. They weren't recommending. It was just simply, it was a nonpartisan thing. Just here's our information. We're just sending it to all the legislators so they know how this has worked. And it was maybe, a lot of people are saying that 5% really should be closer to 15, or it should be, or you may want to consider, how about that, 15%. Are you aware of that report? And is that something that you would be for, or do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, I haven't read the specific report. By the way, to put me in the same league as Dale Knapp is um, I take the compliment. Thank you. Dale Knapp is one of the number one. He's one of the best number crunchers that's out there, and he's a person that I have great respect
Oh,
for. He knows the budget far better than virtually anybody in the state of Wisconsin. He
wow.
and Bob Lang, the head of the Legislative Fiscal Bureau, they are the premier number crunchers in the state budget in Wisconsin. But a few thoughts in regards to it. Uh, so it's good that the state is building some reserves. I generally disagree with going from 5% to 15% because if you have too large a reserves, and there's the debate can be had, what is the appropriate amount? But when you have too much in reserves, that means you're taking too much from the taxpayers. Should you be returning that to them rather than the state holding those funds? I
Sure.
know that that debate has been held in the county that I live in Oneida County, and you want to have a certain level of reserves, but it's I question going to 15%. I think you should return some of that to the taxpayers who were generous enough to give that to the state of Wisconsin. Another reason why there's these significant reserves at the state level at this point is the huge stimulus programs that have been underway over the last 2 years from the federal government.
Hmm.
So while there's this additional money coming into the state of Wisconsin, we're growing more debt at the federal level. So it's kind of like,
Oh,
okay,
sure.
we're putting it in the right pocket, but we're taking it out of your left pocket at the federal level.
Yes.
And that's part of the reason that I oppose these additional stimulus programs at the federal level, because I mean, first of all, it's driving inflation, and the indebtedness is going to be very difficult to get out from underneath. Having said that, this is one of the main reasons why I ran for the state legislature in 2010. We had a $3 billion deficit, and I told people this is number one reason why I am running. We cannot have this type of debt going forward that we leave to our children.
Mm.
And I said to people, it's going to take a whole series of budgets to make that happen. And that is what happened in Wisconsin. Over the course of 4 or 5 budgets, we were able to get Wisconsin out of this deficit and deficit spending and begin to build those cash reserves. And now that's been going on now for about 3 or 4 budgets. At the end of the Walker administration, they were starting to build it. And then we continued to do that even with Governor Evers as the governor. But you can see why some of us really object to Governor Evers proposed $1 billion tax increase with his last budget. Why would you increase taxes to the people of the state of Wisconsin when you've got a surplus that's now in the billions of dollars? It really is unnecessary. So I think there needs to be this balance struck in regards to this deficit spending. But a big part of the reason there's so much money that's went into the rainy day fund the last couple of
Yeah.
years is because of federal stimulus.
Those were two things that he did mention. Because I asked him what he would attribute that to. One of them was corporate tax. I hired a whole bunch of auditors. You can watch the show from yesterday, or it was on there. But the other one was the money that government sent us. And you always use words that I don't know. I think I may have one that you may not know, because it reminded me of that. So it's like when you had said take the money from one, the government, but then it goes to the state, but it has to come from somewhere. You said, one hand and the other. That's called prestidigitation, by the way. Did you know
Really?
that? Yes. Yep.
I'm going to look that up. Hey, by the way, Taylor Hayes has an interesting
Oh.
comment. If you look at, I believe he was saying, I think referring to Dale Knapp, to take the excessive reserves and put it in the rainy day fund, to take the rainy day fund from 5 to 15%, to be more set up for a recession.
Yep.
That's the way I had
Yep.
understood
And
it
that
anyways.
was, yep.
And I think that's accurate, isn't
Yep.
it, Ben?
Yep. That is 100% accurate. And by the way, he wasn't saying to do that.
Yep.
It was just a study. I just want to be clear. It wasn't a recommendation. Because he
Yeah.
said ultimately it's going to be up to the legislature and people that vote for the people going in. Ask them, what do they want to do? And if you don't want to take the 15%, fine. That extra 10, what are you going to do with it? And maybe it is important to give it back to the taxpayers. Maybe it is important to put in education. They can do with it what they want. We just want to make sure that they're aware. Our, number crunchers and our brainiacs, we think maybe, you want to consider getting this up to 15 only in regards to helping during a next recession, because as he said, it's not if, it's when that will happen.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And he does lay out those policy choices well. And I didn't get a chance to hear the program, but I'm sure he put it in those terms. And I would just question the suggestion that perhaps we go to 15%. As we talked about, I think you should return some of that to the taxpayers.
Sure.
So,
well, thank you for getting into that. Oh, there is Ben. Why are elected Republicans in both our state and federal legislatures continuing to oppose cannabis legislation? I think that is the question there.
Yeah. So we actually, this is a really good question from Ben. There's been a couple proposals at the federal level in regards to cannabis legalization. I believe this is a state issue. This goes back to what we talked about earlier in regards to wolves. I think there's a whole variety of issues. It's very clear. 10th Amendment to the Constitution, allow the states to make those decisions. Now, having said that, the thing I support in regards to marijuana legislation is the federal government should be doing studies. So rather than Anthony Fauci wasting money on so many things that he does, like the Wuhan lab over in China, this is something he could do with the National Institute of Health, is spend some money to do this to do research in regards to the impact of marijuana, I think especially in regards to adolescent brains, because this, the research is pretty sound at this point, that if you use marijuana a lot when you're less than 25, especially as a male, with the brain still developing, as you know, Ben,
Mine's still developing.
Brains, women's brains mature before us men's do. I think we all know that intuitively.
Thanks a lot. My wife's going to be watching the show tonight, and oh, great.
So, but anyhow, we really should do that research, because that will inform the policymakers at the state level to make what should be a good decision in regards to this.
Sure.
So I actually know a number of my Republican colleagues that do support various pieces of marijuana legislation, to just say, take a blanket approach here and say that, Republicans all support oppose marijuana legislation. That's not true.
That's not true. Maybe it was 10, 15, 20 years ago, but that's not true anymore.
Yeah. But even back then, there was a lot of Democrats that didn't support it. And
that's true.
So, but there's a lot of policy choices in between. I support marijuana legalization and I don't support marijuana legalization. Like anything, there's a lot of complexities in there, and you see people in different parts or in different places in regards to that debate. I think one of the most important things to be done is to get the research done at the federal level to inform policymakers to make good decisions.
Yeah, because there's so much nuance there. But if everybody wants the 10-second answer from a politician, I mean, or Ben, in this case, just a yes or no, like, do you or don't you? It's, well, I'm not trying to not answer. It's just, there's a lot of moving parts to this here. So,
Ben, the other thing that I'd throw out there is we're really seeing serious problems with various types of drugs, whether it's heroin, marijuana, you name it, cocaine, that they're starting to be laced with fentanyl. And I actually think this is a bigger public policy. Well, it isn't. It is a significant public policy concern that we should all have, because fentanyl is killing people. And in fact, as one of my colleagues said on Judiciary, it's no longer fentanyl is overdosing people or that they're having overdoses. It's a poison. The Chinese government sends the stuff into Mexico.
We almost made it through. Into Mexico. Hey, so here's the thing. I think I know where he's going with this. So I'm going to let everybody know, but we're not going to tell him when he comes back on. He's going to be, I believe, in Mexico, southern border. Tom's going to be down there with a few others. I'll let him tell that. But I bet that's where he's going to go with us. I think it's next week. Yeah, I think it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week. He and a few others, including some from our area, I believe even a sheriff from our area, are going to be down at the southern border to view this, the drug issue and all the stuff coming across. So he just happened to bring that up. And if he does get back on here, I bet that's what it's going to be. And we're just all going to act surprised. Like, what? You're going where? If he comes back on, we'll find out. Oh, and okay, that's a good sign. That's good. We really need to start recording these things. Oh, by the way, Ben is. I still don't know how you pronounce your last name, Swemi. We're gonna have Tim Fry from Ignite Dispensary on next week for a live chat. Just letting you know, because it's 420, and I thought of you, Ben, as soon as we got him on. So we'll be talking, I don't know, CBD stuff and whatever. So you may want to watch that one, Ben. Condolences to the Amory Police Department on the unexpected loss of their canine officer. I'm not even going to try to say that. Thoughts and prayers. Yeah, oh my goodness. I didn't know that happened. All right, well, I think we'll wait here for another, I don't know, 30 seconds or so. Maybe he's already messaged me. There we go. Hey! All right. Are you there?
A bad hair day in Minocqua.
How are we doing on that, rural broadband bills? Yeah. Oh, so what?
It's Ben Sumi.
Oh, is that how you say it?
That's what he says.
Oh, there we go. Because I was just talking. I was telling him about something, and I'm like, I'm not really sure how you say your last name. Sumi, got it.
Thanks for the question, Ben. Really appreciate it.
So to wrap up, there, you were just talking about fentanyl and Mexican, or the border. I don't think you said Mexican, but I think it was.
Yeah, I think that's one of the really biggest problems at this point. We're finding fentanyl being laced in marijuana, heroin, cocaine, and fentanyl is just flat out deadly. It's a poison. These people are not drug overdosing. It's a poison being sent in from Mexico at this point, and it's dreadful what it's doing to Americans. We had the greatest number of drug overdose deaths in our nation's history last year, over 100,000 people.
What?
It is horrible, the carnage. Over 100,000 people for the first time died of drug overdoses. Now, I think there's a couple things that affect that. I mean, the lack of socialization has definitely, as a result of the COVID lockdowns, is part of that. But it's also the fentanyl and methamphetamine is so powerful. I mean, it's just flat out deadly.
Yeah.
And they're poisoning Americans at this point. Between the Chinese and I don't know if it's just the ingredients or the know-how or whatever, but to the Mexican drug cartels, they make it, they send it here, and it goes all over the country. And we see people right here in Wisconsin being killed as a result of fentanyl poisoning.
Fitzy brought that up. We were talking about fentanyl. And because he had said before, meth, and I think he even brought this up on this show, that he had stated that 0% of the meth in Barron County or Northwest Wisconsin is made in Barron County or Northwest Wisconsin. All comes from the border. And then we were talking about fentanyl, and honestly, I don't know anything about fentanyl. I don't know how to make it. I don't know if you can just go to the store, buy supply, or I'm sure you can. Or maybe you can. I have no idea how this stuff comes. Is that stuff... Is it like meth, where he has stated meth does come from, over the border? Is fentanyl too? Is that what you're saying? Like China sends it and whatever, but that also, that's not like we don't make that here in America?
Yeah, we do not make fentanyl in America. Well, I mean, maybe somebody does, but there's very little of it. It's all coming across the southern border, and the Chinese are complicit in making that happen with the drug lords from Mexico.
Okay. Well, we're already at our 30 minutes, so but we only had about 25 minutes with you on. What else did you want to talk about?
We got to cover.
Yeah, that we didn't get a chance to.
Yeah, we got to cover. We're having 2 academy days where young people that want to serve in the service academies, that they want to go to Air Force Academy, if they want to go to West Point, Annapolis, we do academy days where young people that may want to serve, they get to meet the people that are the recruiters for those academies. And, there's usually about a half a dozen young people that are named to the academies each year from the 7th Congressional District. And it is the greatest honor to be able to make that phone call, letting these young people know that they're going to serve in these academies, serving at a higher level for their country. And it's just a great thing. But if people are interested, young people are interested, we're going to have 2 academy days. One, Saturday, April 30th. So that'd be it's a little over 2 weeks from today, right? In New Richmond at 11 a.m. And then we're going to follow up on June 4th in Superior, 11 a.m. at the Bong Center up in Superior. So both on the west side of the district. And if people or their families want to go to them and find out more about this, we will have the people that can share the information with them.
Awesome. Did you say 2 things? Oh, those are the 2 things, right? New Richmond and Superior.
New Richmond and Superior.
Sure.
Yep.
All right. What do you have coming up other than that? Easter plans back in D.C. What's coming up?
Yeah, so it's going to be great. Home for the weekend. The whole family's coming here and going to be able to take a couple days and enjoy it with the girls.
Nice.
As I think most people know, I'm a girl dad, 3 daughters. 2 of them have flew the coop. The last one is going to graduate this year from high school.
Goodness.
So, oh boy, we'll see what happens from there. Actually, I'm kind of looking forward to it because I think my wife is going to be able to travel. She'll be able to travel with me more often to Washington, D.C. when I go out there. And that'll be really nice to be able to have Chris come out and spend some time out there. And she really loves the history of the Washington, D.C. area. And I know she'll really appreciate it. And then we'll be going back into session. And actually, I have a trip to Israel planned in the first week of May. And I'm really looking forward to my first trip going to Israel.
And you said in May?
Yep. First week of May.
Well, we may have to move up your monthly, your monthly chat. Well, no, we can wait to get back because if you're over there, you don't want to spend half an hour with us. You need to be doing whatever it is that you're, doing over there. But I can't wait to hear about that trip.
Yeah. Well, we got another trip next week, and we'll let you know all about that after we get back. Okay.
Awesome. All right, cool. Thank you so very much. As always, happy Easter to everyone. Tom, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, always good to be here, Ben, and I hope everyone has a blessed Easter weekend.
Special thank you to our congressman for taking the time to make himself available and jumping on with us today. For DrydenWire.com, I'm Ben Dryden, wishing all of you a happy Easter. Thank you for watching, and have a blessed day.